Price.
Thank you, Chairman Crane and Committee. I bring before you House Bill, I'm sorry for the record, Elaine Price, District 4, Kootenai County, Coeur d'Alene. I bring before you House Bill 172. It is legislation to deal with consent calendars, which are done on, with city councils, local boards, things like that. This issue was first brought to me by a local city council person. They were new, trying to figure out how things worked, and discovered that there was nothing in state code about consent calendars, and didn't find anything in local ordinances about consent calendars. So in the process of digging, she asked me if there was something that we could do maybe on the state level. Well, not knowing a lot about it, I started talking to people down in this body and found that there was inconsistencies with other cities, as well as other people in this body that felt it was important that we do get this clarified and in state statute. So before you is just adding in code some clarity about what a consent calendar is. And it is ordinary business done by local boards and councils, where they can put several items into one motion and pass it through that one motion. And that's all that is added. It's on page 2, starting with line 1 and ending on line 8. And it also does clarify that a council member may pull items from this consent agenda to be able to have further discussion on it. There was a previous RS, and through that RS, we had some discussions with a former senator who is an attorney for local cities, as well as the Idaho Association of Cities. So they helped us redraft it to come up with this, this legislation. So they are approving of this legislation. So with that, I will stand for questions, and I hope you send this to the floor with a do pass recommendation.
Thank you, Representative Price. Representative Dygart, Representative Alfieri, and Representative Barbieri all have questions or motions for you, one or the other.
Thank you, Chairman Crane. For a question, Representative Price, both cities and counties have adopted Robert's Rules of Order as their parliamentary authority. This already exists within those particular rules to be able to divide out a single topic. Why would we need to put it into code if it's already have the ability to do it using the different parliamentary authorities that already exist?
Representative?
Thank you, Chairman and Representative. All I can tell you is that not all cities do that. So I know of another representative that had problems with this, was not able to pull things out of a consent calendar, was told no. And in the current situation in a local city, same thing is happening. They are not allowing that to happen. So we felt it was important to give consistency across the state for this to be able to happen.
Follow-up?
Follow-up? Yeah.
Certainly.
You know, thank you, Representative Price. If they're already blatantly disregarding the rules that they've adopted for their deal, what's to make it so they won't blatantly just disregard this for what they're doing anyway?
Thank you, Chairman and Representative. That's a good point. But hopefully if it's in statute, they will feel better about following it versus ignoring their own rules.
Well, you could add the penalty is remove their revenue sharing, and I'm sure they'll obey. Representative Alfieri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for motion to send H172 to the floor with a do pass recommendation.
Okay, we do have a motion to send House Bill 172 to the floor with a do pass recommendation. We do have folks signed up to testify. Representative Barbieri, then Representative Skog.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did my own independent research with respect to this, and at least one city in my district does not have has not adopted a procedural manual. Shocking to me that we do not require cities to have a procedural manual. They're operating on simply ordinances. In this particular case, in my research, the ordinance previously wasn't even found by the city attorney that required an individual council member to object to the inclusion of an item in a consent calendar, and that would be pulled out. And they changed the ordinance to require a vote, a majority of the council, to remove an item from the consent calendar, which just opens up an entire different system within the majority rule of the council. So what we've got here is a little bit complex. I would like to see a statute requiring all cities to adopt a procedural manual such as Robert's Rules. But since this one city doesn't do that, it's amazing to me. I think that would be more appropriate, but at a minimum, things can be slipped through a consent calendar without any discussion at all. And they could be major things. And that is not pursuant to our transparency and the rule of really an informed electorate. So this is a step in the right direction. I think we need to go further than this, but I'm going to support the motion.
Thank you, Representative Barbieri, Representative Skog, and then Representative Mickelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a former president of a city council, the consent agenda can often be abused, and very seldom do people follow the Robert's Rules of Orders, even when it is adopted. And there's sometimes good reasons for that. But this bill adds to transparency and protects the public by being able to pull these things off the consent agenda and avoiding that abuse. So I strongly support the motion. And also the city attorney will point this out to the council if they're abusing that, if this is in code. So I think that will help.
You're good? Okay. We're going to move to public testimony then. Representative Price, there's no further questions. I've got two signed up to testify today, Kelly Packer with the Association of Cities, and then we've got one virtual testifier from, looks like Hayden. So, Ms. Packer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Thank you for letting me testify in support of House Bill 172. I'd like to thank Representative Alfieri, who reached out to our association about this matter so that we could help prior to legislation being brought forward. And I'd also like to thank Senator Taves and Representative Price for working with us on amending the initial language to ensure that we didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Consent agendas are great for routine items, your minutes, your payables that are just daily transactional in nature. However, we think the clarity that is provided with this legislation that it cannot include major items, and that one member of a governing body may pull that off, an item off of the consent agenda to be considered separately is helpful. To answer some of the questions and concerns that have been posed already today, most cities actually do adopt Robert's Rules. Some have not. Usually your smaller cities have not taken the time to actually formalize that in an ordinance, and you can have some confusion, and I think that this provides some clarity on what is best practices. Just like this body does with Masons, it's important to have something that is followed and that people can rely on. So thank you so much for the work of the representatives and senators on this issue and for including us in the conversation.
Thank you. Are there questions for Ms. Packer today? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anyone in the audience today that would like to testify on House Bill 172? Seeing none, we'll move to virtual testimony with Ed DePriest. Ed, state your name and who you represent. You have 2 minutes today for public testimony.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chairman and representatives. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. My name is Ed DePriest, and I am a Hayden council member, but I'm representing my own opinions. I've sent you much more detailed testimony and emails and would take far more than time allotted because this is not about, as the author states, to provide clarity. It is about the state infringing on the autonomous rights of cities to conduct their meetings as is best for them. So I'll read fast and summarize at this time. Until recently, the City of Hayden Council meetings had been operating just fine for decades. When a council member routinely consumes meeting time while injecting ideology and personal beliefs into issues that should be based on what is in the best interest of the citizens, and/or a council member makes erroneous assertions to the public suggesting the state requires local municipalities to follow Masons or Roberts, and misinformation is spread through social media and other communications, which causes divisiveness and confusion in the community about the state requiring the use of Masons or Roberts procedure, and other council processes. And when a council member does not avail themselves of the opportunity to discuss with the mayor agenda and consent calendar issues and their placement prior to the agenda, it results in council creating a process, which the Hayden Council did following process. In summation, any council member has access at any time to the mayor to discuss agenda issues. Problem presents itself when the council member rarely communicates with the mayor, let alone regarding consent and agenda. At any time, a council member may request an item to be placed on the agenda or removed. Any council member prior to the meeting may request a consent item be placed elsewhere on the agenda, but when a council member rarely communicates with the mayor, it presents a problem. When the consent calendar is called, any council member may motion to remove it. If there's a second to the motion, then as with all motions, there is complete and open discussion in open session. If after discussion, a majority votes to remove the item, it may be removed to later that meeting or future meeting. Even if there is no motion to remove the item, there is always a call for discussion on any consent item. At that time, any
Ed, you're
council
gonna need to
member
wrap up your testimony.
Okay, well, yeah, okay, real quickly, this is about the state removing the autonomous rights and the integrity of a council. Finally, I'm a lifelong Ronald Reagan conservative Republican, and Reagan often said that governance should be at the most local level possible, and I see this proposed legislation as an attempt by a state legislator to inject the state into dictating how municipalities conduct their business. I respectfully ask that you deny HB 172. I thank you for your service to Idaho, and I'm available for discussion and clarification at any time.
Thank you, Ed. Are there questions today for Ed? Representative Heather Scott has a question for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Ed, I'm curious if your city is part of the Idaho Association of Cities who testified in favor of this.
Let me see how to do this right. Mr. Chairman and Representative, yes, we are. And in fact, you know, the city did not even hear or find out about this until a couple of days ago. So we had not had the chance to reach out to the Idaho Association of Cities. We had discussion yesterday about reaching out to them. Again, this is about the autonomous ability of a city to deal with their particular situation that presents itself. We do not have Robert's rules. We do not have not adopted Masons. I'm not going to disagree that it is probably a good idea for each city to provide develop their own individual manuals, but we do not, and we are not required. And the city has forever basically operated as it has without any issues. So I guess in answer to your question, yeah, we are a member. Sorry about that.
Any further questions? Ed, I've got a question for you. So you stated you don't adopt Roberts, you don't adopt Masons. What do you use then as the rules to govern your meetings?
I think, as you stated, it is probably most likely ordinances and resolutions or whatever. This has been a big discussion with our legal, and we are kind of working our way through this. But to be honest with you, this is my third year as a council member. And my guess is that and this is part of the problem why somebody mentioned the fact that they looked into it and couldn't even find the previous ordinance and that the attorney had to remove it. And that's kind of what happened here. This is somewhat of a cleanup operation so that we do have a policy to go by to deal with what has recently presented itself. When you consider the history of Hayden, they have basically operated, boy, people can see, I guess they see I'm on here. They basically operated with no problems until this issue has presented itself. But I agree. I think we should develop a procedure manual.
Oh, yeah, you certainly should have one. All right. Any further questions for Ed? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony today. Representative Price, would you like to have a couple of minutes to wrap up since there was negative testimony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think I have anything else to add to the testimony.
Thank you, Representative Price. Committee, we do have a motion to send House Bill 172 to the floor with a do pass recommendation. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is carried. It will be done. Committee, that's going to complete our work for today. We are